So this is what a very, very, very basic enterprise browser application will look like. So there's a script that you sort of build at the top of the page to use C parlance, and it's called EB API modules.js, and that will give you a namespace. So you get the EB namespace, stands for enterprise browser, obviously, number of what are those classes, objects. As part of that, one of which is barcode. So an example method here would be to enable the barcode scanner. You can obviously specify this as an anonymous callback function, but I'm just declaring the name here. So I'm enabling the barcode scanner parameters, and when a scan occurs, this callback happens, and what am I doing now? I'm putting the data, it comes back to the JSON object, and that object is then, the data is then displayed to the user. So yeah, very basic. But in our scenario, we're going to assume we have a Pocket browser application that was developed, let's say, 8 years ago, in this realistic scenario. It was running on an MC31 or 3090, whatever was popular at the time, running Windows CE. It was running in Pocket browser. All the scanning was done via data wedge, so it was using the key-based key wedge functionality to capture barcodes. That was maybe done because it wanted to run on Zebra and some competitor device, because a lot of competitors had similar industrial browsers. It did use an API for key capture to facilitate quick data entry. I've got video, I'll show you that shortly. And in this scenario, our manager has said, right, we need to have this application running on a TC51, and I don't want you to modify the application at all, and I want it to appear modern. So we've got our work ahead of us. But just to give you some basic idea of what the application looks like, this is the video that had the broken codec, so hopefully this will be fairly professional and work. Please excuse, I'll find my mouse. I've extended my desktop, but apparently it's extended it to the left. Fair enough. Okay, so this is the application running in Pocket Browser at home, because I didn't want to have to bring this device with me. See, I'm launching Pocket Browser 3 on my MC3190. Two screens. The first screen is a menu page, and then it goes to a scanning page. This is where I'm going to now scan barcodes, and the keys are going to be injected into the page. This is my arm scanning a couple of barcodes. I need to scan them in the correct order because the text field has to have the appropriate focus on the page. Notice how ugly the page looks as well. I've harnessed my inner GeoCities abilities to make this UI here. I've entered a quantity, 5. I've hit S, and that's submitted it back to the back-end server. The reason I hit S is because it's just convenient for my workflow. Scan, hit S. It's a hardware key, and just helps me facilitate quick data entry. Bit of logic, if I don't scan every barcode, then it's going to tell me to try again. And that's it, that's basically all the application does. I'll just switch back to my presentation here. So over the course of this presentation, we're going to try and go from this, which is the video you just saw, to this, which is the final application running on a modern, this is a TC51. Notice how the UI looks a lot better. It's using, rather than have to use a hardware scanner, we have the soft input on the bottom here, and we obviously have to take account of there's no physical keyboard. So the fact that we previously pressed S, we're going to have to accommodate that somehow. On to modifying the application. So you can, as step 1, take the existing Pocket browser code that you developed 8 years ago and point your enterprise browser start page to that code, and it will render something. In fact, it will render this very small, it's even smaller for you because this isn't the largest of projectors. Yes, it's a very small scan product page up here. Obviously, that's not what we're aiming for. We want it to look very nice. So the first step is to define a viewport on the page. The old application would have been using Pocket Browser, would have been using Internet Explorer 4 probably, or 5 maybe on these older devices. That didn't understand what a viewport was, so now we have to add that. And, like I say, account for the hardware keyboard. Just do something clever with data wedge to make sure we're getting the keystrokes through. And we're going to need to just make the page look an awful lot better. We're going to do that with a feature of Enterprise Browser, a deceptively powerful feature, to be honest, called DOM injection. Now this, as the name implies, it enables you to inject things into the DOM. So those things, it might be CSS, it might be JavaScript, it might be old-style Pocket Browser meta tags. Essentially, you can update the functionality of your application by changing dynamically what's in the DOM, and you can change it from page to page depending on what you want to insert. So the first thing you need to do is define in your configuration this file list.txt. That's just going to be a list of files that you want injected, and the file, well, here you go, that's what it looks like here. So these just the files that you want to inject, and then the pages. I've defined star for all of my pages because I found that most reliable, but you can also just define the pages that you want that to appear on. Okay, so this is probably the video. So this is a video of adding the viewport to the web page and then just making sure we have the page looking nice. I've personally used Bootstrap. I'm really an Android developer, so I don't do a lot of web development, but I'm familiar with Bootstrap. That's why I chose to use that. I don't have a strong reason other than familiarity to use Bootstrap. So let's go here. Hopefully this launches full screen. So this is my existing application running in Visor, so it is on a real device. I'm just going to go into my config, and the first thing I will do is to add that file list.txt. I believe this can be in the cloud. I'm not 100% sure, but I would recommend adding the file list to your device because then it's always available. It's probably quicker to load as well. It's not something that's going to be modified very often, I would hope. But obviously, if it's something you do plan to modify, then make sure you have that hosted in the cloud if possible. So I'm just pushing that to my device. Notice there is a syntax error there. I come back and fix that later on. And the file list is going to copy and paste. These files are required for Bootstrap, so it's the Bootstrap, CSS, JavaScript, and I've got this file at the top there, Bootstrapify Common. That's my great naming convention. That's where I'm going to be putting my logic in to parse the page, to add the Bootstrap components to the page, and also to add the viewport to the page. And I'm just pushing, I'm pushing the config and the file list both to the device. They both have to be on the device, and then I'm fixing my syntax error and pushing it in. So back in Bootstrapify Common. So if you're not familiar with Bootstrap, this is a framework, a JavaScript framework to make your page look a lot nicer, has a lot of components in it, and it works by you define your elements to have certain class names, certain attributes. I'm not an expert in it, but I just managed to get it to work. So all of this code you see down the bottom here is me looking through for headers, for tables, for divs, and just giving it the appropriate class names that would be needed by Bootstrap. Up the top here, I'm creating a DOM element, and I'm just dynamically injecting that into the page. And this is me trying to show you all of the code I've gone through. So obviously you need to have some knowledge of the application, which I did because I only wrote it half an hour before I wrote this demo here. I'm just giving things class names, setting the visibility should have previously been set with the old application, but now I'll just show you what that looks like. So again, all I've done, used Bootstrap and added a viewport. Remember what it did look like, and now doesn't this look an awful lot better? We have the Bootstrap buttons, we have the submit. We're still using data wedge at this point to capture our data via keystrokes. So next, let's take care of those hardware keys. We had the hardware S button previously used to submit the scan to a back-end database somewhere. Although I think all it did was put up success or error, but let's pretend it submitted it to a database. We're going to make use of DOM injection again, and we're going to use an enterprise browser API called remap key. So this key, this S key, was always key 19 on my device. It's just, I don't have my device, I've lent it to the lady doing simulscan to scan people, but on a TC51, very convenient, next to the scan button is the volume down button. So we're going to use the volume down to submit our captured data to a back-end server, and that's key 53. So whenever the application hears a 19, it will turn that into a 53, which Android will interpret as a volume down. The other way, it gets a volume down and remaps it to S. Sorry, that's what it's doing. And then the application understands S. So let's quickly go through and play this video. I know it's more fun when I've got a device and things can go wrong, but this is a lot easier for me to just describe what's happening in the video. So again, I'm adding a file to file list.txt. Notice how I'm using the EB API modules. This is, I said it earlier on, that's the reference that you need in order to use any of the enterprise browser APIs. I'm then going to add my special logic to this inject keyCapture.js, which probably comes very, very shortly. This is what EB API modules looks like. It's minified. You don't want to be modifying that, just include it into your app. So, a bit of a limitation of enterprise browser. This is documented. If you're doing injection from a remote server, you need to wait for the EB namespace to be available. That's what this is doing here, just setting a timer every 100 milliseconds. Is EB available? When it is, then call check ready. And this is calling the EB API key capture remap key, as I described previously. Let's see that running. Ignore who it's licensed to. That was just my old license key I had lying around on my development machine. So yeah, both barcodes. And now you have to imagine that I'm pressing the volume down key, so it's better with real devices. But there you go, succeeded. Volume down, submitted the scan. Oh, and it didn't work here. Notice also it looks a lot better. I used Bootstrap to make that try again into a label with label danger or label success, I think it is. This looks a lot, as a developer, I can't make things look very nice very easily. Okay, moving on then, we still want to do our scanning by data wedge. Now, out of the box, Enterprise Browser will not just work with data wedge, unfortunately, unlike Pocket Browser used to. There are a few steps that need to be followed. It does depend on the version of your device that's at that link there. But just to get data wedge running, it is possible. There's a config option called use DW for scanning. I didn't come up with the name, but it's fairly self-explanatory. And this enables you to capture data just through data wedge in general. But we're going to be capturing it through keystrokes. First thing to do is to make sure that data wedge is configured correctly. I think I do come on to this, but you need to have a profile enabled, associated with EB, with the barcode input selected. So let's go with that. And again, I will point out anything interesting, or that I find interesting, as we go along. So like I previously said, we need to add this use DW for scanning. The case doesn't matter. That's why some of these are uppercase, some of them are lowercase. I'm going to set that to 1 or true. You can tell it's been around a while because we're from a C background and we're saying that 1 is true and 0 is false here. So we're just pushing that to the device. And then what are we doing? We're probably defining the data wedge profile, are we? Yes, we are. Okay, so we need to make sure we have a profile. If we want to add a new one, there's a menu up there, new profile, make sure it's enabled. Click on here, and then Enterprise Browser. So whenever Enterprise Browser is in the foreground, I should have explained this, then this data wedge profile becomes active. You've probably heard other presentations here today talking about this. And this profile contains all the behavior that you want the scanner to do. So the enabled decoders, how you want the output to happen. You see we're choosing output as keystrokes, so I want to receive my data as keystrokes. But there's an awful lot more configuration you can do associated with that profile. So now Enterprise Browser in the foreground, so that EB scanner profile is active. And then a scan, and then I scan again. Accident, I've accidentally scanned the same barcode, maybe deliberately twice. And this illustrates that because we're using this keystroke output only, it's very difficult to have some logic to make sure that you have to say try scanning again and delete the field, or maybe auto-tab into the next field. This is a really common use case we saw back in the type of application that was running on Pocket Browser. There is a better way. I said previously we had the data wedge profile, so we can choose to have output received as an intent. And we can interact with that intent through Enterprise Browser. So first of all, this will define in Enterprise Browser, this goes in the config, and this will define a broadcast receiver which is listening for this intent action. So if you're familiar with intents on Android, this is an implicit intent. I think this is a dynamic broadcast receiver, so it's not modifying the manifest, it's just registering this on the fly. And then we need to give Enterprise Browser, we need to define a JavaScript function which will be called when that filtered intent is received. And that's what this start listening API does here. And when it receives the intent, it parses that. The intent is coming from data reg on a barcode scan. And so we're then able to populate the form appropriately. Maybe like only certain types of barcodes go in certain ones of those text boxes. So we're able to determine which barcode we use to scan. So again, making changes to the configuration file. This is the intent filter that I described previously. Am I going to type the whole thing out? If I am, then I'm just going to skip ahead, to be honest. Let's try and go to here. There we go. So you notice how I've enabled the receiver. This is not typical on Android, but in Enterprise Browser you need to say true, enabled. Category is kept blank. This matches the what you've done in data wedge. What's happening here? So here, what am I doing? Inject key capture. Oh, I just paused it. No? Okay, I was just having to think what to do next. This is where I add the received intent JavaScript. This is where I'm going to add that JavaScript function that's going to be called on every scan. I guess I'm doing that next. So again, pushing it to the device. So yet again, need to wait for the ED namespace to become available. Notice I'm only doing this on the scanner page, location.href equals scan.html, because I don't want to handle anything on that menu page I showed earlier. This is the ED intent start listening, an example of defining a inline anonymous function rather than, remember previously I had a named function that I defined earlier. And I'm just going to interpret this. The intent is coming in as a JSON object, so everything's in the data attribute. And then in the data attribute, there's all of these com.symbol.data wedge. Data string is the string representation of the barcode. There's also raw data, there's source, so you can tell if it's come from the barcode or simulscan, more on that later. And there's the decoder type, so you can tell if it was a code 39 or a code 128. Here I am changing the profile, so we're no longer outputting keystrokes, we're outputting intents. The action is as I defined in my config XML, this is what ED's listening for. The category is blank, don't put anything in there, because if you do, then Enterprise Browser will have to also filter on the categories. Just leave that blank, just get it to work. So let's see what that looks like. So if we go scan, now notice how my text cursor is in the top field. Oh, because all I'm doing is displaying an alert. So I guess that's what we did in that. So we've captured data, that's great, isn't it? And scan the barcode and we're able to show it on the screen. The next step is to then make sure that that data goes into the appropriate text field. So we're just going to make an assumption here that all of the barcodes that go into one of the fields start with 978, so it's quite a common preamble for barcodes of a certain type, which name escapes me right now, to start with 178. So let's just make this assumption for the purpose of this presentation. So if it does equal that, then document.getElementById. It feels like I'm typing quickly when I'm actually typing. When I'm standing here watching it, it's always a bit slower. So notice how I've put all of this in a function, this received barcode function. That's going to be useful later on when I come to showing some of the more advanced features. But here we are. So I'm just populating the text fields right here, and then hopefully I'll show it happening in real life. This JavaScript file is running off the server, so I don't need to push anything to the device now. Enterprise Browser is just going to load that off of my local server I'm running. Then I scan a barcode, goes into the asset field because I had that logic with 978, part number. In a real app, I would have some logic to, if they're both populated, jump to the quantity field so I can start typing that in. And I think I probably did that off camera because I forgot as part of the presentation. So okay, that's great. We're receiving data from DataWedge and it's working in Enterprise Browser. Now the next step, is to, so previously in the menu page, I could still scan. It wouldn't do anything with the scans, but the laser would still come on. It would be better if I could control DataWedge to disable the scan, the laser or the imager, if I'm on that menu page. So I'm going to do that by not receiving, but this time sending an intent, also using the EB intent API. This is going to send it to the DataWedge service, which is listening for broadcast intents of certain action types. This is actually, because I have to get this running on an older device, this is the older style of API. If you go to our tech docs, it will have all the new APIs there. And you're able to do an awful lot of features using the DataWedge API. The one I'm going to show here is enable or disable that barcode input attribute of the input plugin, but you can also do things like get the active profile name, clone a profile, delete a profile, and this is an area which we'll be updating in the future, definitely. And I know Pietro has also spoken about that at this AppForum. So yet again, pushing the file list.txt to the device, everyone's going to be an expert in that. We have the send intent, this is a new file. The action we're going to do, either enable or disable, depends on what page we're on. So on the scanner page, we want to enable. And again, we have to wait for the EB namespace to become available. This is just something we have to live with. I guess in a real application, you'd probably do all of this in a single like JavaScript file that you inject rather than me. I've done it separately, to be honest, so that it just looks like a progression. But here we're sending a broadcast intent to a broadcast receiver that is DataWedge. It's an implicit intent. The action, as defined in the API, to target the input plugin. What's this data? What am I doing here? Okay, so you need to provide some, intents have extras. So here we're just putting an extra in the intent, and it's called in the API extra parameter, but you could put whatever you want in this data field here. And under the covers, Enterprise Browser, in the Android level of Enterprise Browser, is calling put extras, and that JSON object is being parsed, and the extras of the intent are being populated. So let's just see that working. Oh, again, it's not great as you have to pretend I was pressing the barcode scanner on that page and nothing was shown, but it does still work on the scan product page. So that was an example of how to send intents via Enterprise Browser to whoever it might not be DataWedge, it might be anything else on the device that's listening for those intents, but for this use case, it made sense to send intents to DataWedge. Have I gone too far here? Video. No, that seems right. Okay, so that's all very well and good. We were scanning the barcodes one at a time, but wouldn't it be great if you could use Simulscan to scan 2 barcodes at once? Now, there's a presentation going on, we didn't plan this, but I think it's 2 doors down on Simulscan for more details, so it's a little bit late if you missed that presentation, but let's just show it working in action. So Simulscan is a part of Zebra's mobility DNA, more detail in the backpacks that you guys got when you were registered. This enables you to capture whole forms and process those forms, optical character recognition, mark recognition. It is like a paid, licensed product if you go to that level of complexity. But at its more simple level, you can just use one of these default templates, and I've used default barcode 2 here. Maybe I'll start the demonstration running. And what that enables you to do is to scan 2 barcodes at once. So we no longer have to go scan, we just do one scan and it captures both barcodes. So to do that, in our intent callback that we're getting, so we modify our DataWedge profile to use Simulscan as the input rather than the barcode scanner. And we use this source. Oh, no, I've gone too far, way too far. Okay, we use this source. If it's Simulscan, then you you get a big JSON object back describing what was seen in front of the imager, and you're able to do some processing on it there. I just reused this method I defined earlier to make sure that the UI is processed. So let's see that in action. Here we go. What are we doing first? So previously we just processed this, we assumed it was a barcode coming in, a single barcode. We're going to look at the source of the intent, and this will either be barcode or simulscan, depending on what the input plugin type was that you defined in your DataWidge profile. I think I'm just going to use an else clause here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's barcode, but yeah. If a simulscan is scanned, then a simulscan is captured, sorry. What that will do on the device, it will take an image, this is all under the covers, it will do some processing of that image and it will try and match it to whichever template you've defined. So typically you would define maybe a shipping label, and it would try and find an address or find a tick next to yet delivered. But in here we have a default template and it's just looking for 2 barcodes, which is really useful for our demonstration purposes. And that's the code I showed earlier on. And first thing I'm doing on the device is probably to modify the profile. Yes, it is. So we're no longer, okay, so notice how although they're tick boxes, they're actually implemented as radio buttons. So if you go back up to barcode input, it's no longer selected. This is me selecting default barcode 2. There's loads there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10. If, I don't know. They work really well for demo purposes, and they work well in real life as well. I don't know how many use cases just have a sheet of 10 barcodes outside of a demo. Probably exists. So we're back to scanning. I'm actually on a different device now, which has got a little bit of a slower CPU. I needed to do that because it supported the simulscan engine. I just had to work with what I had around the office. So notice how it showed a window that said place document for scanning, and then very quickly, I'm doing it again here, captured both barcodes and populated the UI. We've increased the efficiency of our user, our end user, with simulscan. So that was one way to increase efficiency. Another way to increase efficiency, and to be honest, to show a different way to do it, to show one of our other products, would be to use what we call Enterprise Keyboard. Now, this is a future a technology preview, I think I've called it. So it's not available yet, it is coming soon. I've, again, had to use an older device where I can post-install Enterprise Keyboard. This is a feature, so let's assume, for the purposes of this demonstration, that this top part ID requires some alphanumeric data to be entered. The middle, the asset number, is just a numeric data, and both of those you would typically expect to scan something. Remember, we're on a touchscreen device. We don't have a gun form factor here. It's very comfortable, and I'm sorry I'm having to use my phone. I don't know what these messages are, hopefully they're okay. But you can, just by touching the bottom of the screen, it's a lot more comfortable than trying to find the hardware trigger at the side here. So, and what we want to do is dynamically change the format of Enterprise Keyboard based on whether we're scanning or we want to enter a number. So this quantity field, very, very easy to enter numbers here. Similar to what you saw in the keynote from Ivanti, where they had all these custom keyboards, where here's a custom keyboard that's just a numeric input. And we're going to show a demo of this. Like I said, this is like a technology preview. Don't take this as, yes, this is definitely what's going to happen in the final product. We're going to use a feat. We're just going to, again, do some DOM injection. Some of this looks a little bit complicated, but hopefully you look like an intelligent bunch, so I'm sure there'll be no problem following along as long as I don't make any errors. So again, define a new page, which I've called input types, but this is how we're going to define. I've called it that because if you're writing a web page, you say input type equals tel, don't you? And then you get the numeric field to enter a telephone number. So what am I doing here? I'm just going through each of those text boxes, and I'm giving it a type. So there's two things. So I'm giving each a type, text, number, or well, number at the bottom. And for the ones I want to be scannable, I'm giving it this Z method or Z method, and that's how the enterprise keyboard is going to know that it needs scanning. Then the JavaScript is going recursively through every item on the web page. This is me calling the same function recursively down here. Thank you, Darren. Scroll back up, please. And then I am applying an event listener. So whenever I give focus to any of those text fields, I am asking, well, I'm creating this URI down here. So I'm getting the ID, the type, and something else about it. This is Z method. I'm creating this URI. Zebra, obviously, the enterprise keyboard here is listening for the URI. I forget the terminology. And then I'm using an EB API to show the keyboard, SIP, showing its age here with some legacy terminology from Windows Mobile there. That's the keyboard. Showing the keyboard, and it's navigating to this URI, which will be heard by enterprise keyboard and will switch itself dynamically. So obviously I have to use, I did something there. I think I was changing it back to barcode input rather than simul-scan input. So if I now go to scan products, it immediately pretty much goes to the scanner. Here I am swiping. I think I remember I do this rather enthusiastically over and over again. Here we are. So this just imagine I'm like swiping backwards and forwards with my thumb here. Back up to the alphanumeric keyboard. So we've got more keyboards to choose from in the top field because I define that as text. Asset number, where have we gone? Why have we gone back up to the top? Come back to asset number. Oh, and now I'm scanning. Okay, so it went a different color, and that was to indicate that the products were being scanned, enter a quantity, and then just press the volume key like before, and everything submits. And that's, that in a nutshell is some of the upcoming features of, and then I turn the device upside down, it seems. I'm just getting carried away now. But that's one of the upcoming features of Enterprise Browser and keyboard handling. So with that, believe it or not, went a lot smoother than the previous time I demonstrated this application. I will open it up to questions. I think we've got a few minutes. Are there any questions at all? Yes?
So is this browser based on like Chromium, or is it a browser you created yourself?
So we support a number of platforms. We support Windows Mobile still in Enterprise Browser, and we support Android. So I'm talking about the latest versions. We have a custom browser that we've written for Windows Mobile, and that is based on a fairly older branch of WebKit, but to be honest, because of the capabilities of that platform, it can't run but that's based on WebKit. The Android that I was demonstrating here is literally just using the WebView API of the device. So it depends what device you're running on. When we come to Nougat, it will be Chrome based on the Chrome APK. On Marshmallow, it's the Android system WebView from the Play Store on GMS. There's all that, the differences in versions that you can get into. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
There is this moment when there is an old-looking page displayed before the DOM injection is run.
Yeah.
It can be somehow pushed or hidden or so.
Yeah, so do you remember I kept moaning about the fact that I had to wait for the EB namespace to become available? That's only required on if you're pulling in files from a server. So if I'd have put all of those files on the device, it would have made the demonstration a lot more painful to watch, but it would have been a lot quicker to then update the DOM based on what I was trying to inject.
We used it because on WebKit on the Windows Mobile CE, the default buttons was round. It's weird looking, and sometimes you don't even see the description of the button correctly. Yeah. So we used the DOM injection to redraw it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was not looking good because it was just maybe a second, millisecond, but it still was there.
Yeah, so this was Enterprise Browser on Windows Mobile. Yeah, so obviously it's got the slower processors, so it probably would have taken a bit longer to...
I was just curious how if there is some template, the style, that I can set the round how the WebKit or how the Enterprise Browser should display these buttons. Why he is even doing these buttons redraw?
So I know what you mean. On Windows Mobile, the buttons were very small, and I remember myself, yeah, little and thinking,
because there is this parameter round,
Yeah.
and it's set to 1 or something like that. That is that it's not.
So this is like a native input button.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So and then you styled that with CSS using.
No, I was just I was curious why there isn't some in configuration or in the enterprise version why there isn't some styling.
Aha, that's excellent. That's a really great feature suggestion. And the lady at the back of the room there, the program manager, just not wearing her black t-shirt deliberately.
We're providing some scripts to customer right now. So if they are happy, it could go into a beta, and if it's in a beta, it would likely be in a beta.
But there will be some script over it, not some. It's not some that I can set template or style template for how to draw it before. It will be after you draw.
Yeah. So I mean, let's take it offline. We can discuss it with Jocelyn. So it's like a picture.
I'm not sure if it's it has some. It doesn't not care, but we solve it another way. But I just know that this was one thing that I saw.
I mean, it would only be a problem on Windows Mobile as well, because the default buttons presumably on Android look a lot better, and you can style them a lot better.
So you want to restyle as the buttons, basically?
Yes, but I have to recall after why I can't change the how we display.
Thank you. Great feature. Any other questions at all?
Maybe you set to the volume button the S.
Yeah.
Could it be also the enterprise keyboards? Okay, now when I change add the quantity.
Yeah.
Now, no, not next, but.
I was going to do that, and then I realised that the key capture API of Enterprise Browser doesn't work with any of the soft keyboards on the device. It only works with the hard. I mean, if you had an MC92 with Android, it would work with the hardware keyboard, but yeah, it doesn't work with those soft keyboards. So yeah, you could probably inject some JavaScript to remove the existing event listener that was listening for the S key, and then do some kind of key input press, isn't it? That would still work with JavaScript key input press.
For example, because there is in the keyboard in Android, there is this action for send, search, and in data edge, I can set the button, and so after the scanning, it will do the action there is correctly. So it's not possible with an enterprise browser or to set to transfer via DOM injection the application to with this to cooperate with some action.
So yeah, you're defining the action there in your DataWedge profile, aren't you? I think I need to sit down and understand that.
No, this is because your question, your application is already there somehow done. So this can't be done with DOM injection. That default action for this field will be is not.
Well, if I was doing that, my JavaScript would look something like unregister the focus event, I can't remember the syntax, and then I would add my own focus event for using key input or some default JavaScript handler for the keyboard, and doing the processing that way, rather than having to rely on the enterprise browser APIs. And sorry if I misunderstand that, then let's talk afterwards. Can get an answer. How much longer is there?
We're okay, we've got another 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, so are there any more questions? Okay, so next up in here, like in 15 minutes time, is the feedback forum. So if there's any, I think it's the feedback forum.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you had any questions or comments or feature requests to any of the key members of our teams, product managers, development managers, then stick around for that session. By all means.
One more, but it's not regarding some functionality, but maybe to licensing. And it's not just enterprise, but also other software. There is this possibility to do the project license.
Yeah.
If there is a minimum required number of licenses, then it's what's the number, 10 or
50.
50?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, sorry, that was the question.
Yeah, if that is a problem, we can even evaluate to do a deployment license for a smaller quantity, but usually the rule is to have at least 50 licenses.
Well, in this case, it will be 100 instances.
It has to be in the same account as well. We found a number of partners had like 10 accounts with 10 different licenses and saying, where's my deployment license? It's got to be in the same account. Okay, well, thank you very much everyone for attending. Appreciate your